Welcome to The Edge with Mark Delavan. A world-renowned operatic baritone who's been around the world literally and figuratively with his fair share of victories and defeats. We will answer your burning questions, we'll interview people who we can learn from, and we'll engage in discussions worth having. No topic is off limits.
Welcome back to our YouTube channel, and this our second episode and our first segment. I thought that this time around I would answer two very general questions about costumes, and I'll take a little time with them. The first one is about costumes. I always get asked about costumes, but I thought I'd flush it out a little bit and see if we can come up with some interesting information. The first thing I'd like to talk about is my most iconic costume, and that has to be my first Scarpia ever. It was black on black with a burgundy sash the color of blood and a white wig that was so stark you could see it from the moon. And every time that I come out in that first act costume is always black, and you have a long black Darth Vader cape. If you've grown up watching opera and you've seen great people dressing like that, you just can't wait to wear that costume and walk on stage and sing Untitled Chapter for the first time. And every single time, I look at it and I say, oh, well, black on black with a red sash, nice. Yeah, I guess that's the way it goes. But inside you're going, how cool is that? I get to dress up like Tito Gobi and Cheryl Milnes and Piero Capuccilli and James Morris and all those great people that have done this role. It is the greatest entrance in all of opera. The distant second has to be Octavian's second act entrance into Rosenkavalier with fantastic music. This music is fantastic. You split the crowd and walk out there. And after that, I added boots and riding crop, but that black on black, it was like, I think I've called it Johnny Cash on crack or something. Most expensive costume. I have two of those. One is the character of Plutus in Piquedame in the 80s that I did with the San Francisco Opera. Plutus appears in the middle, somewhere in the middle of the second act. And it's actually supposed to be a part of the role of Tomsky, but the guy that was going to do Tomsky did not fit in that costume, and I did, so I got the nod. It was a long Handelian wig that was probably in the neighborhood of $1,500 to $2,000 with glitter in it and a little headpiece, kind of a little feathery headpiece. A huge gold breastplate. Now, it wasn't real gold, of course, but nonetheless. And it had a long velvet cape that came around the back, and a gold skirt with those kind of Roman sheaths kind of going down, the little shanks that go down the thing, and gold boots and maroon tights and maroon accents. I think they said $27,000. That's pretty pricey for a costume. I would love, as a Scotsman, to be able to tell you that that was a kilt, but the fact is it was probably a skirt. The next one was the Met Ring Cycle back in 2013, Robert Lepage's production. I was doing the character of Wotan in Das Rheingold and Die Walküre, And in Das Rheingold, I wore this silver breastplate with a matching silver eye patch. It was over my left eye, but I'm making an idiot of myself here. And it was a weird eye patch because it had two things that came down over the ears. In a weird way, please don't take offense at this, but it looked a little bit like a woman's thong. And if you know anything about the character Wotan, that might be appropriate. But both of the material matched the breastplate, and there was capes and forearm guards that were made out, and fingerless gloves, and a spear that looked like it was forged in the bowels of hell itself. And in Die Valkyrie, it was gold, so it was all this magical stuff and a long wig, and just, if you'll pardon the term, badass. So let me cut to the chase here and just tell you that was one of the coolest productions I've ever been a part of as well. But the next coolest costume is for reasons that you will never see, but I'm going to tell you the inside story. My debut role at the Metropolitan Opera was the role of Amonasro in Verdi's Aida. It's a lead role. It's not a particularly huge role. As I will read shortly, I was with a huge, amazing cast. But the thing about the Metropolitan Opera is they keep these little lapel tags in the back. And in the back, there is, the year of the production, the role, and then the guy who wore it last. And I got to tell you, there was about 10 of them on there. And it was that costume was like a who's who of who wore that costume. But some really amazing people wore that costume. That was the coolest costume. Now, to the infamous list, that's the one you really want to know. Worst costume. There were two Rigolettos that I will never forget. And they both took place in the summertime, and that was part of it. The second one will not even get the nod of what happened, because the costume designer was not very nice and not very helpful. But number one has to be the Bayerische Staatsoper in Munich, the Bavarian State Opera in Munich. They did a production of Rigoletto that took place, ready? On the planet of the apes. Now, what an old movie series has to do with an iconic story such as Rigoletto, I don't know. But that director chose to superimpose that old movie on top of this. And then she superimposed characters from Star Wars. For instance, Spadafucile, the assassin, wore a Darth Vader helmet and a Darth Vader outfit, but he was a large gorilla. Getting that in your mind? Nice picture, isn't it? And I didn't have to be an ape, which was great. I guess I was Mark Wahlberg or Charlton Heston, depending on how old you are. But I didn't get to wear an ape man costume. I wore an astronaut costume. And it was hotter than hell. It was made of pure leather, and it had like foam insulation. That's exactly what you want in the middle of the summertime, don't you? A lot of insulation because you want to keep warm. I actually insisted that they cut vents here so that at least there'd be some air circulation in there, right? After all three acts, I would come backstage, zip that thing down the front and pull it down and change t-shirts because I was soaked. It was an awful experience. And spoiler alert, it was also the worst production I've ever done. Okay, that concludes my costume list and worst costume and worst production I've ever done. So I covered a couple of things there.
Thank you for joining our ongoing conversation. Please consider becoming a Patreon subscriber, which further enables us to deliver high-quality material to you. Click the Patreon link below, where you'll see different tiers of subscriptions. We'll make it worth your while.